Hello and welcome to In the Roud. Greetings and salutations, dear listeners. This is In the Roud, a folk song podcast, and I'm your host, Matt Quinn. Join me as we travel through the world of traditional folk song, one song per episode in the order they appear in the Roud Index. Each episode will feature two guests, one providing an historical look at the song, while the other will be a singer from the folk music scene to talk about their own version of the song. This podcast is proud to be partly sponsored by the Traditional Song Forum. Meeting regularly both in person and online, the TSF provides a place for a variety of topics related to folk song, song collectors, singers and many other aspects of folk song research to be presented and discussed. It's free to join and most meetings are free to attend. So discover more about the TSF at www.tradsong.org. So let's get going. This week's song is Roud 56, which is Child Ballad number 88, Young Johnstone. Later on we'll hear from our singer guest Ellen Mitchell, but for now let's have a look at the song's history with the creator of the Roud Index himself, Steve Roud. Oh, hello and welcome back, Steve Roud. Hello.
Hello, Matt.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good, glad to hear it. It's a Monday. Oh, it's not a Monday afternoon now. It's not. I was about to say it's a Monday morning. Feels like a Monday morning. It's actually afternoon.
Afternoon, yes.
But yes, lovely to see you. Nice to have you back on the show. Let's just dive straight in. We've had a string of quite well-known songs recently. This season started out with The Unquiet Grave and Little Musgrave, and then Child Morris, Gil Morris, and we had Barbara Allen, and last week Lauder Boar and Mary Flynn, which is sort of halfway house between completely unknown and Barbara Allen sort of level. But here we go with a song I'm not sure many people will know about. Roud 56, that's where we are. It's Child Ballad number 88. Young Johnstone. Not a song that I was familiar with at all, but then having looked it up, I realised that our guest in the second half of this episode, Ellen Mitchell, I probably have heard her sing it, but in the build-up to doing this episode, I just hadn't made the connection. So, Young Johnstone, start us off, as usual, plot and what's it about?
Yeah, okay. This is going to be a pretty short episode. Because not because the song isn't interesting. Actually, I wasn't really familiar with it, and reading about it, I'm thinking actually it is quite interesting, and there's nothing wrong with it as a song. I can see people singing it,
Sure.
But for some reason we don't have many versions. We'll talk about them in a minute, and therefore we don't know much about it because it's not mentioned. Anyway. The versions that we do have, and there's only really about a dozen of them. They, as with all child ballads, they don't all tell the full story,
Right?
And some of them miss out some rather important points, like the motive of what's happening. But combining them all into our heads. And we, as I'll say in a minute, we don't have an early broadside.
No, I noticed that because if we're doing, I'm going to do this a bit later, but statistics for the Roud Index, 39 entries in the folk song index and a total of zero in the broadside index, which I found quite surprising.
Yes, I found it surprising, and it means that we don't have an early printed text that we can check the others against,
and we don't have an elongated title.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
We don't. Because normally the broadside texts, although they're not necessarily the originals, They probably are, but not necessarily. But they tend to be the fullest texts.
Yeah.
So bits that are missing in inverted commas in the oral versions, we can usually work out what's going on by the broadside text. But if you don't have a broadside text, then you're a bit at sea, which we'll again talk about in a minute. So the story is, as I say, which we get from looking at all the versions. Young Johnson is sitting drinking with his friend called the young Colonel, or other sorts of thing, young Caldwell in one version, but normally it's the Colonel. So it's Johnson and the Colonel sitting drinking. They're obviously mates. And Johnson says to the Colonel, I'll marry your sister if you'll marry mine, which is fair enough thing to say. But the Colonel answers and says, well, yeah, you can marry my sister, but your sister, I'll take her as my mistress. Or in other versions, they use other words that are even less complimentary.
Right.
I'll
Okay.
take her as my mistress when I'm in town. Now, one thing you don't do is diss somebody else's sister. Johnson loses his temper and immediately draws his sword or his dagger and kills the Colonel there and then. I mean, that's taken me a long time to explain that, but really it's just virtually one verse. Marry my sister, no, stab, dead, right. So it's over very quickly. But of course, he is now a fugitive and he runs off. Now, in some versions, he goes to his sister.
Right.
And she says, I'm not going to hide you because you're a murderer and, I don't want to get involved, basically. So he then, and then this happens in all the versions because it's the crux of it, goes to the Colonel's sister. In other words, the sister of the person he's just murdered. Explains what happened.
And
And
this is
she
this is
says,
the Colonel's sister that he wanted to marry.
yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So, but it's her brother that he's just murdered. That's the key point. So
Yeah.
he's gone to the girl who's he's killed her brother. Anyway, she says something like, well, I'm reading into this. She says, well, he deserved it. Or in a lot of cases, she says, well, I'll take you in and hide you and you'll think more of me. In other words, I'll do it for our sake, my sake, rather than the brother's. So she does. She hides him in her tower. And sometimes she hides his hawks and his hounds and that kind of thing that you find in child ballads. And she says he implies actually in some cases that he is wounded. And sometimes he calls himself her husband. So they may have already married. But anyway, the point being, she hides him and keeps watch. And in the next verse, so it might have happened very quickly, 24 armed knights knock on the door of the tower and are looking for him and say, where is he? We're after him. He's a murderer. And she says, well, yes, I saw him. I saw this wounded knight. And if his horse is good, as it should be, he'll be in Scotland by now. In other words, he's been and gone. You've
Right.
just missed him. She then says to the knights, well, while you're here, do you want some food and drink and rest a while? This is a ploy because he's just there in the other room in the tower or maybe upstairs. And so she does wine and dine them a bit and presumably off they go. I don't think it's ever mentioned that they do depart. But she then goes to see Johnson. And he kills her. He stabs her.
Oh dear.
And in some versions, you think, why the hell did he do that? But in others, it makes sense that she goes to him quietly because he's hiding, creeps up on him. He wakes up, thinks he's in danger, and just the reaction is to stab her, as one does if you're woken by your enemies. So they then have a bit of, a couple of verses saying, "Oh, I'll fetch a doctor." He says, "The best doctors in Scotland will be here or in England." She says, "Too late. Can't you see? I'm dying." And she does. And that's about it. As far as I can remember, there's no roses growing out of graves or anything. It pretty much ends with that scene. So really, in other words, it's quite a good story, actually. As
Yeah.
long as you've got the bits at the beginning, the motive of him killing the colonel, and the motive for him killing his girlfriend or wife. As long as you've got that in the story, then it makes a pretty good story.
Yeah, and it ends. This is just. It's sort of reminded me slightly. Actually, this is how my pop culture brain works. Some of it actually reminded me instantly of West Side Story, which of course is an adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. Not least the fact that the sort of the lovers both end. He realizes that she's dead, so he kills himself at the end.
Yes, sorry, I missed out that bit. In some versions, he does fall on his sword, as it were.
Yes, and so
So he does kill
the
himself.
fact that he
Yes.
wakes up finds, well, not wakes up, but yeah, he's realized that in this case he's killed the woman he loves, so he
Yep.
kills himself, which is a bit Romeo and Juliet-ish at the end, and also
Yeah.
the bit in the sorry,
What else could he do?
well,
That
I
he just
mean
killed.
there could be some other things he could do, but he'd own up to everything, um, but and then there's the bit in the middle with. Which I think is more akin to West Side Story than Romeo and Juliet, in which our titular character has killed his rival, which is the brother of the woman he loves,
Yes. Oh,
and
yeah. Okay.
then he goes to which is Romeo killing Tybalt, but he's a cousin of Juliet. But in West Side Story, that's Tony killing Bernardo, who is the brother of Maria. I can't remember the name of this bloody song in West Side Story, but Maria. So he's killed Bernardo, who's the brother of Maria, and then he
Yeah.
goes to see her, and but in Romeo and Juliet, she forgives him, and they have a night of passion, and they're about to leave, but then Bernardo's wife comes in, blah blah blah. But nevertheless, there are some, I
Yeah.
think, some plot. There's a couple of plot elements to this that are very Romeo and Juliet,
Yeah. But
which I wasn't expecting.
those elements, the I've killed your brother, or you've killed my brother, or my father, is relatively common. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not unusual in other songs and ballads,
this is true.
because that sets up the tension between the boy and the girl, man and the woman. There's this thing between us. Oh, by the way, you've killed my brother. Sometimes you've killed 7 brothers. Sometimes they deserve it, and sometimes they don't. But it's a
It's
it's
a
a
common
plot
enough thing, and
thing.
yeah, so one wonders whether Mr. W. Shakespeare could have been aware of some of these songs if these songs had been around back then, or at
Yeah.
least been aware of plot motifs that turn up in a lot of old ballads and things.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Or obviously they weren't old ballads at the time,
No,
but
no, that's
anyway,
right. I'm sure he would have been.
yeah, and
He was
so
he was a clever chap.
it's nice to see connective tissue with bits of Shakespeare and
Yeah.
other things, So anyway. So yeah, we haven't got an earliest a broadside, but how far back can we take this?
Well, we can only take it back to, well, when I say only, it's still fairly early. David Hurd, a Scottish poet and collector, an early one.
Is this
in
version A in Child's?
Child, yes, 1769.
Oh, it's still very good going, yeah.
That's not bad, but even so, it's not back to the 17th and 16th centuries that the Barbara Allens can go back to. And of course, one of the problems with Hurd, I mean, Hurd is a very important source for material and very interesting, but we don't really know where he got his stuff from. I mean, he obviously gathered it from everywhere that he could. We don't know that he actually went out in the field collecting, but so it could well be a lot older, or it could have been recent at that time.
Yeah.
Some of the songs in Hurd have come from the sort of stage or ballad opera type of things. He gathered songs from wherever he could, as far as we know. Anyway, so 1769 is our earliest date, and then it's collected several times, but not hundreds of times. A handful of times, if you like.
Yeah.
By the early Scottish collectors, particularly William Motherwell, 1800 to 1820s Motherwell.
That's right. There's 3 or 4 Motherwell versions
That's
in
right.
Child, isn't there?
Child's very keen on Motherwell.
Right.
He was a good chap, good collector. But also Buchan, Peter Buchan, I presume. Sorry, there are several Buchans around.
It is Peter Buchan.
Yeah, Peter Buchan, again, 1820s. So it's obviously around at that time, but then it seems to sort of disappear from the record. And again, we can't find at the moment any 19th century broadsides to explain how it stayed in the repertoire.
Yeah.
Because in the 20th century, all of a sudden, it's collected again, not many times, but a few times in Scotland, 3 times in Canada, at least, once or twice in USA, but no English versions that we know of. But one Irish one, and this one's a bit of an anomaly. It's from a singer called Margaret Rayburn. She was brought up in County Meath in the 1860s, so Ireland. Then she went to America. So when Child put out an appeal for old ballads, she wrote to Child and said, here's some of the songs that I knew when I was a child in County Meath in the 1860s. They're mostly fragments. They're, a verse here, 2 verses there. But a number of important child ballady type songs, including this one. If I remember rightly, though, there's only a verse or 2 there. But that shows that it was at least known in Ireland in the 1860s. So that's halfway between Hurd and the early Scottish collectors. 1769, 1820. Still being sung in Ireland in the 1860s, and then collected again in Canada and in the 1930s, Scotland in the 1950s. So Bronson, who does the tunes of the child ballads, he says at first sight it looks like this song has come back into the tradition somehow or other. It's there in the early days, it's there in the later days. What happened in the middle? It's always possible that there's some printed source that brought it back, that it was, in the Penguin Book of English Ballads of 1888. I mean, there wasn't one, but you know what I mean, a key text that brought the song back. But there's no evidence for that. And in fact, if you look at the Canadian versions collected by Mackenzie in Nova Scotia, there's more than one version, and they're sufficiently different that it's not all obviously from one source. All of this adds up to the fact that one of the things we really don't know about this ballad is how it managed to last at least from the 1760s to the 1950s and 60s, so 200 years, without anybody noticing, apart from the lady from County Meath. And it makes us realise, of course, that we don't know everything by any means with these songs.
Yeah, and even with all the extensive work you've done, there are still gaps.
Well, exactly. There's huge gaps. When you look at particular songs, you realise how little we know and how little we know if there are no printed sources. Get back to the broadside.
Yeah,
Normally we'd say, oh, well, in the middle of the 19th century, there's a Catnach broadside, which proves that the song was still around. We don't know if people used that broadside, but it dates it. It gives us something to fix onto. But
yeah,
in this case, we don't have that.
sure.
Come the 20th century, it was collected in Scotland by Greg Duncan, Gavin Craig and James Duncan in Scotland around 1905, 1907. So the same time as Sharp and Vaughan Williams were collecting in England, Greg and Duncan were collecting. And then, as you'll say in a minute with your field recordings, it was collected by the School of Scottish Studies with their tape recorders in the 1950s. And of course, the Canadians were collecting it as well. So all in all, it still only adds up to perhaps 15, 20 versions or something.
Yeah,
from the whole world in 200 years.
Yeah, we've got 39 entries in the index, so if you whittle that down to unique versions or unique entries and singers, collectors, whatever, it's probably around 15, 20.
Yeah, that's right. And it's always a bit confusing with the early Scottish ones because they all reprinted from each other.
Yeah.
So although there might be 10 entries for Scotland in first half of the 19th century, when you look at them carefully, they're all recycling the same version without necessarily telling us.
Yeah.
Which is what Child was very good at.
It's all fun and
sorting
games.
out. Yeah.
It's all fun and games.
Yeah. So Child has 6 versions.
Yes.
Bronson comes up with 4 tunes. We've got 1 or 2 that have been recorded since Bronson. So there is, from the tune point of view, there's more to be had
right
than Bronson. And I'm afraid that's probably all we can say about Young Johnson.
Yes, I'm just looking at the a couple of the Canadian versions are in a book, Ballads and Sea Songs from Nova Scotia. It's called, and I can't remember off the top of my head when that book was released. I'm trying to look it up, but you might come up with a date quicker than me.
It's here somewhere.
1928. 1928.
Yeah. Okay, yes.
And so, 2 versions there. And this is from Mackenzie. What was his name? Somebody Mackenzie?
W. Roy Mackenzie.
Very good.
1928, Cambridge, Massachusetts is where it was published. Yeah, that is one of the standard Canadian collections, ballads and sea songs. Nova Scotia, 1928.
I must investigate it more closely for other things. So in that book there are 2 versions of Young Johnstone. He notes that version A does not follow any of the child versions closely, nor does it seem to have been influenced by the altered text in Pinkerton's Select Scottish Ballads or the free version in Chambers' 12 Romantic Scottish Ballads. It doesn't. At least Mackenzie felt that one to be different from other stuff, and then the version B, he said, is clearly a variant of Child version D, which is one of the Motherwell manuscripts.
One of the Motherwells, yeah.
And that version D, if we go back to that, from the recitation of an Irish woman, wife of John French, a porter at the Quay of Ayr.
Oh, I didn't notice that, so that's another Irish connection.
Oh, indeed, neither had I, actually. I'd read all this beforehand, and then you mentioned I forgot to bring it up. So the Irish one in Child version D in Child. Johnston Hay, Hey, but capital H, so maybe that's the surname in this case.
Good.
Johnston
Yes.
Hay and the young Caldwell.
The
See,
Caldwell. Yeah.
yeah, so, and that's what turns up as the second version in this Nova Scotia book. Yeah, as Johnson and the young Caldwell, Col rather than Cal, was a drinking of their wine, says Johnson unto young Caldwell, if you marry my sister, I'll marry thine. I'll not marry your sister, or you'll not marry mine, but as I go through yonder town, I'll make her my Clementine.
Yeah.
That one.
Courtesan is how it's said in another version.
Or and instead of Clementine, because it closely resembles this version D in Child, which is Irish, and concubine is the words in that
Yes.
one.
Which is
Yes,
not what you want your sister to be described as.
indeed not. Indeed not. And then in the first one, in this Nova Scotia book, Johnson and the Colonel, from the singing and recitation of John Henderson from Colchester County. As Johnson and the young colonel together were drinking wine, says Johnson to the young colonel, if you'll marry my sister, I'll marry thine. No, I'll not marry your sister, nor shall you marry mine, for I will keep her for a miss, as I will go through the town. I assume miss is just mistress
Mistress, yeah.
in this case.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and I mean, there's well over 20 verses for each one. I'm not going to pour through them, but if we just do my usual compare and contrast. Version A in Child, the Herd one, at least the text that's put in Child seems to start a little way into the plot. Right, it doesn't
Yes.
start. It starts with he's already killed the colonel and gone to his sister.
Yeah, that's right. That, as I said earlier, that the two key points are why does he kill the brother, and why does he kill her?
Yeah.
In some of the versions, it's not really clear.
Okay.
It's just all of a sudden,
Yeah.
all of a sudden he's done it.
I've killed your brother. Exactly.
Yeah.
Version B in Child, which is Motherwell's minstrelsy from the recitation of Mrs. Gentles Paisley. Young Johnstone and the young colonel sat drinking at the wine, same as usual. I would not marry your sister for all your houses and land, but I'll keep her for my leman when I come o'er the strand. Leman, Leman.
Yeah.
What
means the same. Means the same thing.
does it? Okay, I've just
Yeah.
that's me. I've not come across that word before. Version C, I will not marry your sister. This is version C. His mother was manuscript from the recitation of Jeannie Nicol, 1825. Sweet William and the young colonel. One day was drinking wine. I will marry your sister if you'll marry mine. I will not marry your sister, although her hair be brown. He obviously likes brunettes, but I'll keep her for my liberty wife as I ride through the town. At least that's got a sort of poetic license to it, but it's not very nice either. And then version D has the concubine, and version E, the Buckens one, starts with it's Lord John. Is Peter Buchan the guy who rewrote a lot of stuff without telling anyone?
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Is he? Okay, right, yeah, allegedly. Thank you.
Yeah, he is the one that.
Yeah.
That there are question marks. Child thought he was a faker. Grundtvig, the Danish man, scholar who advised Child, thought that Buchan was okay. David Buchan, a recent folklorist, thought he was okay. Steve Gardam thinks he's the devil in disguise.
Because I noticed in the one in Buchan is Lord John, and that doesn't turn up anywhere else.
No, that's right. But yeah,
and that
I think the jury's still out on Buchan.
Okay.
How reliable he is, but most people think he was a bit of a faker. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. But that one, yeah, sometimes you look at they do seem slightly suspect because the names are not usual.
Not quite the same.
But then we don't know, because there's when we did the Unquiet Grave, was it? Or was it there was a song a while back on the podcast where all the names in the ballads were William or near enough that, except one version that was Philip. and and you always wonder why that one's like that because But anyway, that one's Lord John, and that starts off. Yeah, Lord John stands in his stable door saying, "I will gay ride. His lady in her bigly bower desired him to bide." So that's starting later in the plot as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, and then Bronson, there's only four tunes in Bronson. I did have a go at them all earlier. Let's see if I can do a quick scan through again. Um, Sightseeing. I like almost all four of these. I think they're all quite good, and they're all quite. Um, I suppose they're all quite similar. Bronson does his tune groups. There's four tunes. He puts tunes one, two, and three in Group A, and the fourth tune in Group B. The fourth one is the W. Roy Mackenzie book, Johnstone of the Young Colonel. So the second tune, the second of the two versions, I think. Um, but then, yeah, so let's have a look. Young Johnstone. I'm on the right page. The right page. Tune one, Lord John's murder. But that's Christie, and Christie's text follows Buchan's ancient ballads and songs. So that's where this is. And yeah, they're all minor tunes, I think, with some inflected modal stuff here and there. If people want to think about the tunes in that way. This Christie one, then sung by a Banffshire woman, 1876. Lord John stands in his stable door, says he, I will gay ride. His lady in her bigly bower desired him to bide. How can I bide? How shall I bide? How can I bide with thee when I have killed your brother? You have no more but he. And so that's quite a nice sort of grand sweeping melody. I like there's an octave leap in there. Um, dun da da dun dun dun, which that's quite a nice motif there. But that's the Christie one, which follows the text from Buchan.
Yeah.
But
Can I chip in there?
yeah.
Because you've just clarified something that you said earlier on. You queried the fact that Buchan just calls him Lord John,
Okay.
and that's rather different. Hearing you sing that, Lord John stands. The way you sang it,
Oh, that's very
it's
good.
it sounded just like Lord Johnson, Lord Johnston, Lord John
Johnston, Lord
stands.
John stands.
In other words,
Oh, that's good.
Buchan is vindicated here. He may have misheard it, or the singer may have misheard it. In other words,
Yeah.
you can't blame him for this being different. Right? Carry on.
No, thank you. Well spotted. I hadn't spotted that at all. I love that kind of thing. Lord Johnston, Lord John stands in his stable door.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Lord Johnston in his stable door.
Excellent. There we go. Version 2 in Bronson. Motherwell manuscript. I think this is one of the ones in Childs. It's the final version in Child, which is the F version in the appendix, just one verse. Bronson said this stanza from Motherwell's appendix does not correspond with any in his manuscript, but seems closest to Jeannie Nichols' text, which is Child's C.
Yeah, just to be pedantic, I think you're talking about Motherwell's appendix rather than Child's appendix.
Sorry, I am. Yes, you're quite right. You're quite right. Of course, Mother's appendix, but it ends up as yes. You're quite right. And here's the melody. As Willie and the young colonel were drinking at the wine, oh, oh, will you marry my sister, says Will, and I will marry thine. It's a pentatonic bum 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 bum. It's a five note tune, pentatonic, except for one emergence of the fourth of the scale. Da, 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 da. Which, so that's a pentatonic apart from one note, which is, you get that a lot. Quite like that one. That was called Willie and the Young Cornell, or Cornell, just Colonel. Motherwell, 1827. Version 3, The Cruel Knight, it's called in brackets. I don't know whether that. Maybe you'd tell me, why do some titles in Bronson have brackets, are in brackets?
Oh, if it's square brackets, it's because in the original, in Ritson, which is taking it from, probably doesn't have a title.
Okay.
While you're singing, I can look it up, see if I can find it. But that's usually the case, is that the title's been added by somebody.
Sure, okay.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, this is Ritson edition of 1869. The knight stands in the stable door as he was for to ride, when out there came his fair lady, desiring her to bide. So, and a 6/8 melody here as well. Nice jauntier one. Still minor, though. The knight stands in the stable door as he was for to ride, when out there came his fair lady, desiring him to bide. How can I bide? How dare I bide? How can I bide with thee? Have I not killed thy brother? Thou hadst no more but me. So yeah, it's sweeping, but a bit higher in sort of where it sits in a scale. But that's a melody, but I'm not sure where that melody comes from. Although Steve has just gone to get a book from somewhere. Bronson has written that Ritson's text follows that of Heard, which is the version A in Child. But the melody, however, not sure about, unless, as Steve Roud returns to his chair, having retrieved a book, maybe able to tell us, were you just retrieving the Ritson?
Yes, it was. Yep. And contrary to what I just said, Ritson does give it the title of The Cruel Knight.
Okay.
But he's taken it, as you say, from Heard.
That's the text.
So maybe it's Heard that doesn't give the title.
Oh, okay.
Page 165. Hang on a minute.
Well, Child has titled it The Cruel Knight as well.
Yeah, Heard has The Cruel Knight as well. So
there we go.
Ask me again why it's in brackets, and I'll say, I don't know. Because everybody in that chain, Heard and Ritson and Bronson, all call it The Cruel Knight, so why it should be in brackets.
There we go.
You'll have to ask Bronson next time you see him.
Yes, I will do. And then the other tune in Bronson, just basically to finish, this is one of the two from Nova Scotia, sung by John Henderson. It's modal, but it's also got inflected seventh as well. So we've got sharpened and natural seventh of the scale, as Johnson and the young colonel together were drinking wine. Says Johnson to the young colonel, if you'll marry my sister, I'll marry thine. I'll do the next verse as well. No, I'll not marry your sister, nor shall you marry mine, for I will keep her for a miss as I go through the town. Which seems to have nothing in common with the other ones, except for that octave leap, which in this one was the end of the third line. Says Johnson to the young colonel. And if we go back to the first tune in Child, we've got that same octave leap at the end of the second line. This is the Christie one, which is the Buchan one. Lord John stands in his stable door, says he, I will gay ride. It's in the third line, same as the Nova Scotia. His lady in her bigly bower. We got this. There's this. All these both versions have a melody that moves and sweeps around, but both third lines end on the same octave down jump. Which, if I spent a while analysing it, I could probably talk about further. But it's interesting to see that they both have that in it. So maybe there's a connection there if anyone would like to delve further. And that's all the tunes in Bronson, just four of them.
Yeah.
Normally, I mean, not normally, but we had some where, like, when Steve Gardam and I did the Lord Bateman episode, there was like over 70 tunes, and I handpicked like 6 of them. But this case, just 4, so that's very good. Only other thing left to say is recommended listening. I think we only have 2, and you mentioned something else, but I think what we've got access to are 2 separate singers in this case, haven't we? I think
Yes.
if you filter the Roud index down by sound recording, you get 12 entries, 11 of which are Betsy White.
Yes.
And Betsy White, that's a recording that I think for a lot of people, they'll know it. It's on the Scottish Tradition double LP called The Muckle Sangs, which is Scottish Tradition 5, the 5th in that series. Which I've only got 2 and 3 and 5. I must look out for 1 and 4 at some point. But that's where Betsy White sings Young Johnstone, and that is the same LP where it's Betsy White and another guy who are the only field recordings to exist for Tam Lin. It's the same LP. But the Muckle Sangs
yes, a very important LP, and also issued on CD, if I remember rightly.
Oh yes,
but
that's right. But by Green Tracks, I think in 1992.
Yeah, it was very important at the time.
But it's a 1975 LP. But yeah,
give us access to that kind of material.
Absolutely. And there's Hamish Henderson and Ailey Munro doing an extensive sleeve notes in their accompanying booklet, mostly about the history of Johnsons in Scotland rather than about the ballad itself. If you're fascinated by that sort of stuff, you can delve into that. Apart from the fact that Betsy White of Montrose had Johnstone in her blood, apparently.
Right.
So this ballad seems to have been handed down in a sort of family tradition, and bearers of the name and those related to them undoubtedly identify with it. It is impossible to say whether or not the travelling Johnstones have any connection with the wild reivers of earlier days, but it must be admitted that the historical Johnstones were exactly the sort of lawless clan who may well have provided recruits for the Tinker gypsy bands in the 17th and 18th centuries. So
sounds
says
a bit speculative, all of that, but never mind.
So says Hamish Henderson and Ailey Munro.
Yeah.
But so basically, all we've got is Betsy White, apart from one other recording, which I listened to this morning. We've got a woman called Jessie MacDonald. And there's a recording of this on the Kister Riches site. That's the School of Scottish Studies, collected by Peter Hall. I did have a date for that, but I've now lost it. January 1968.
Right, yeah.
There we go. And so, yeah, just 2 women singing it is all we've got on the field recording side. As you would probably say, not enough evidence to base, because there are some times when we've had a song where it's been either predominantly or entirely women singers in terms of who it's been collected from.
Yeah,
that was Sandra Kerr talking about Gil Morris, Child Morris. All pretty much every single mention of this song says sung by a woman. There doesn't appear to be many or any men singing it, but only 2 in this case. We can't give any evidence. That's the evidence we've got. We can't speculate on that.
Not really a good sample, is it? But
no.
You can say on the current evidence, it was popular with women singers.
Yes, and so yeah, there are 2, and I will play both of those in the episode break in a few minutes. So I think let's unless you have anything else to add.
No, I think we've done that one. I think we've done very well considering how little we had to say.
I think so. Well, yeah, there's not much in the history, but when you get into the Yeah, there's the 6 versions in Child to Compare, and there's 4 versions in Bronson, I think.
Yeah.
And an extra field recording that I wasn't aware of before this morning. I think it's worth discussing. So I think we'll leave it there. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see you again in 2 weeks' time. But until then, Steve Roud, thank you very much.
Thank you.
A huge thanks again to Steve Roud for providing us with the history of young Johnstone. Just the 2 traditional clips this time. So let's hear clips of Young Johnstone sung by Jessie MacDonald and then Betsy White.
Us Johnny and the young cornell that he'd been drinking wine. Oh, would you marry my dear sister as I have married yours? For I would not marry your dear sister so hair brown. For he drew into his rusty sword as hard as he could draw. He threw it through the young corner and it is called a hidden spoon. Oh, say to me, my horse, said, give to me my home. And give to me the fastest horse that ever covered my ground.
Oh, Johnstone and the young colonel were drinking high at wine. If you will marry my sister, then I will marry thine. Oh, no, no, said the young colonel, such a thing shall never be. I'll keep her as my housekeeper when I come o'er the lea. Now Johnstone had his gay broadsword, and a gay broadsword had he. He reared it through the young colonel, till a word he ne'er spoke more. Then he spurred his steed, and swift he ran, like lightning o'er the lea, till he did come to his sister's gate, and he tinkled at the pen.
I just want to take a couple of minutes now to tell you about our Patreon. Patreon is a way for you, the listener, to support the podcast. I mean, there are many ways to do that. The simplest way is just keep listening, because that really helps, as you might expect. But please do subscribe anywhere that you can to the podcast. But Patreon, if you feel like you can support the podcast financially, then Patreon is the way to do that. For a monthly subscription, we produce a myriad of bonus episodes. And through that, we're mainly covering songs from elsewhere in the Roud Index, courtesy of a strand of mini-seasons called Singer's Choice. So that's where I get one singer guest to come on for 3 whole episodes, and we cover 3 songs of their choosing. Consequently, it's like applying a random number generator to the Roud Index. What fun we're having. We've had mini-seasons so far featuring people like Nancy Kerr, John Doran, Jess Arrowsmith, and many more. We also produce episodes looking at other aspects of folk songs and folk song collecting in the form of spotlight episodes. So if you feel moved in that way to support the podcast financially, please do head on over to patreon.com/intheroud, and you can sign up for either £5 or £10 per month and receive semi-regular bonus content. And so we move on to the second half of this episode. My singer guest for this half is Ellen Mitchell. However, I must apologise for this. The podcasting gods were against us on this one. Both Ellen and I had very, very busy diaries and could only manage a very small window of time to get together on Zoom. Also, I was feeling rather ill at the time, so I wasn't in the best frame of mind. You might be able to tell that my voice isn't great at the time of recording this either. Also, for some reason, I couldn't get the technology to work. Zoom was playing up a bit, and not only was I not feeling well, the audio quality of my voice is a bit off too, but I think I managed to make it listenable through some clever EQing. But anyway, all this aside, this has ended up being a very, very short singer interview. It's almost nothing at all. We'll have a couple of minutes from Ellen talking about meeting Betsy White and her thoughts on the song, and then we'll have a few minutes from me doing the recommended listening stuff, and then Ellen sings the song, and that's it. We'll definitely get Ellen back on the podcast sometime in the future for another song and a much longer, almost normal length interview for the podcast. But in the meantime, I hope you'll forgive me for this, and here's a short bit from Ellen Mitchell and me about young Johnstone.
So I met Betsy White years ago, late 70s, early 80s. I met her a couple of times. She was a lovely, lovely, gentle lady, lovely singer, lovely wee sense of humour. And, you know, she was just a nice person. And I heard her singing this song a couple of times, but I didn't get the words directly from her. I went to the School of Scottish Studies and looked it up and listened in and got it there. So this is Betsy White's version of Johnson and the Young Colonel. What I would say is, initially I thought this was a very short-tempered guy who drank quite a lot of wine. He had a jealous heart. And Betsy said to me, she told me that it was from her mum's side of the family who were Johnsons. And they did have that in their characteristic, their personality, a kind of jealous nature, you know, envious, jealous nature. And at the end, where she's nice to the guys that are chasing him for murdering somebody, he turns it round to she was, you know, flirting, and he gets very jealous and stabs her. Okay?
Right, yeah, because I was thinking that, yes, there are some sleeve notes on the Muckle Sangs LP and CD that the Betsy White recording is on. There are some sleeve notes written by Hamish Henderson, which goes into quite a lot of stuff about the Johnsons.
Oh, well.
The Johnstons, which is great, yeah. So
you've already got that, yeah.
Well, that's fine, yeah. And it says Betsy White of Montrose had Johnston blood in her, and this ballad seems to have been handed down in a sort of family tradition. I've just got my hands on a different recording of you singing it on one of those Fife Sing CDs.
Oh yeah, I sang it then. Yeah.
Yeah, and the sleeve notes for that one says, this rare old ballad has survived in the song tradition of the Scottish traveller family of Johnstons. It has been collected from several members of the family since the 1960s.
All right.
Collected from Duncan Johnstone of Burnham in 1967 when he was in his 80s. His niece Margaret Johnson recorded in Fife in 1968, and then another niece, which was Betsy White, author of 2 books about Scottish traveller life, The Yellow on the Broom and Red Rowans and Wild Honey.
Two great books. Yeah.
Yes, I'll add them to my ever-growing book list. And interestingly, it says, and also from Betsy's sister in Australia. That sounds like a sort of rare as anything sort of. I wonder if anyone's ever found any sort of collecting of that one properly, you know.
Yes.
I wonder, but it'd be nice to find that. But
it would be.
I do have Or they're on my dad's shelves. I've got the two books, Folk Songs of Australia, volumes 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I wonder if it turned up in there,
Uh-huh.
but we'll see anyway. But yeah, so as I spoke to with Steve Roud, it's a fascinating song and doesn't seem to have been sung much.
No, it hasn't been, because probably it's actually a very sad story, you know. Although ballads quite often are sad stories, but this one has, it's quite violent as well, you know.
But we do love a bit of violence in our folk songs.
Yes.
So yeah, although as we just said, it's not been recorded much. Certainly, as we spoke to Steve Roud earlier on, it's not been found much in oral tradition, apart from those the Betsy White and family earlier I mentioned. But then also, yeah, we've got the recording of Betsy White, and we have a recording of Jessie MacDonald that's on the Kiss to Riches site, singing Young Johnstone as well. But on the revival, it's not been widely sung and recorded, but people have looked at it. I mean, as every time I do an episode that ends up being on a child ballad, I inevitably mention Ewan MacColl. Ewan MacColl did sing it on him and Peggy Seeger's album Blood and Roses Volume 3, and that's one of that might be the Peter Buchan version that's in Child, I think, in there. I haven't listened to it in a while. But you've got Ewan MacColl's, and we've got Joe Miller, who has been on this podcast quite a few times, sang William and the Young Colonel on a Scottish Text Society cassette called Mary McQueen's Ballads.
Oh, I've got that, yeah.
Good. I need to get my hands on that as well. It's quite a lot of stuff I need. And yeah, Joe's been on history and singer side of this podcast before, so it's great to mention her. We've got June Tabor made an album of border country ballads in 2003 called An Echo of Hooves, border ballads, and it's on there, Young Johnstone. It was worth hearing June's version. Jackie Oates has sung a version. I don't know where she got it from. I don't think there's any sleeve notes for that album, but it's on her album Saturnine from 2011. And listeners know that Jackie was last week's singer guest, and she did mention that song briefly, how good it is. And almost last but not least, one of the most recent recordings of it is Alistair Roberts. It's on his 2018 CD called What News, and he learned it from you, Ellen. and then, yes, it's on an album of your singing, as well as it's on Fife Sings 3. There's the musical traditions release of you and Kevin called Have a Drop Mare, and it's somewhere in the middle of that. That's two quite hefty discs of recordings of you and Kevin, and it's on there as well. So I highly recommend people get everything that was ever released by Musical Traditions, but particularly that one because it features you. So yeah, I'll put links to all those in the episode notes. Otherwise, yes, lovely to have you on the podcast, even if it's very brief. This is all to do with scheduling rather than scheduling and my health rather than anything else. But finish us off. Give us a rendition of the song, if you please.
Okay, Matt. Johnstone and the young colonel sat drinking hired wine. Oh, I will marry your sister if you will marry mine. Oh, no, no, says the young colonel, such a thing can never be. I'll keep her as my housekeeper when I come o'er the lea. Johnstone had a guide or so, and a guide or so at tea. He reared it through the young colonel, till all Lord he never knew. He spurred his steed and swiftly rode, like lightning o'er the lea, until he came to his sister's gate, and he tilled at the pin. I dreamed a dream, brother dear Johnstone, and I hope it's for your good. They're seeking ye wi' hawk and hound, and the young colonel is dead. They're seeking me wi' hound and hawk, as I well expect they'll be. But I have slain the young colonel, your dear brother was he. I dreamed a dream, brother dear Johnstone, and I hope it's for your good. They're seeking ye wi' hawk and hound, and the young colonel is dead. They're seeking me wi' hound and hawk, as I well expect they'll be, for I have slain the young colonel, your ain dear lover was he. Oh, get ye gone, ye bloody night, oh, get ye gone for me. If ye have slain the young colonel, you'll be nae brother to me. He spurred his steed and swiftly rode, like lightning o'er the lea, until he came to his true love's gate, and he tilled at the pin. I dreamed a dream, love, dear Johnstone, and I hope it's for your good. They're seeking ye wi' hawk and hound, and the young colonel is dead. They're seeking me wi' hound and hawk, as I well expect they'll be, for I have slain the young colonel, your ain dear brother was he. Come in, dear love Johnstone, come in and take a rest, for I care nae mair for the young colonel, if your ain dear body is safe. He'd scarcely landed up the stair into the tower above, when 24 stout-belted knights came seeking him at the gate. Oh, did ye see a bloody knight? And a bloody knight was he. Oh, did ye see a bloody knight ride furiously o'er the lea? Alight, dear gentlemen, and have some bread and wine, if the steed be good that he rides upon, he's across the bridge o' Tyne. Thank ye, lady, for your bread, and thank ye for your wine, but I'd give thrice £100 if your ain dear body was mine. Now Johnstone had a gay broadsword, and a gay broadsword had he. He pierced it through his lady's breast, till she fell down on her knee. What ails thee now, love, dear Johnstone? What ails thee now at me? Haven't I given you all my father's lands and all my mother's fee? Oh, live, Lady Margaret, he said, even for a half an hour. How can I live when my very heart's blood is trickling on the floor? Now Johnstone had a gay broadsword, and a gay broadsword had he. He reared it through his jealous heart, and joined his fair lady.
That was Ellen Mitchell singing Young Johnstone. Again, apologies for the brevity of that. Life, it seems, was against us. As I said, I'll definitely try and get Ellen back in the future for a proper, decent length interview and chat on another song. But that's the end of this episode. If you'd like to get in touch with me, feel free to drop me an email at intheroud@singyonder.co.uk, or you can visit the podcast on various social media platforms. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/intheroud. Our Instagram and Threads handle is at intheroudpod, and our Blue Sky handle is at intheroud.bsky.social. If you are enjoying the podcast, I would really appreciate it if you would give us a little rating and review on wherever you get your podcasts from. Also, click like if that's an option, or the subscribe button. It really helps to reach a wider audience and to ride the algorithm wave. In the Roud is a media partner of Veteran, the traditional music label. Although this week's song does not currently feature on any of their releases, you can find details of their extensive catalogue on their website, veteran.co.uk. One last huge thanks to this week's guests, Steve Roud and Ellen Mitchell. Join me next week for episode 7 of this season. Hopefully I'll be feeling a bit better by then as well. We'll be looking at Roud 57, which is Child Ballad number 89, False Foodridge, a song I have not come across before. Just one guest for this one. I'll be joined for the whole episode by returning podcast guest Brian Peters. Until then, that's it from me. Stay safe, be well, and I'll see you next time in the Roud.